Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most shadowed and complex stories unfolding in Eastern Europe. Russia's shadow over Belarus and Ukraine's quiet but calculated moves that could reshape the future of the region. This is not just about politics or borders. It's about power, fear, and the silent struggle that's happening right next door to a war zone. So stay with me till the end, because what's happening beneath the surface might just define the next chapter of Europe's history. Let's start with the obvious. Russia has always seen Belarus not as a neighbor, but as a brother that should never stray too far from home. Ever since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Belarus has been the one loyal state that never truly escaped Moscow's orbit. President Alexander Lukashenko has ruled Belarus with an iron fist for nearly 3 decades, balancing between East and West. But after the 2020 protests, when his grip on power almost slipped, he turned completely to Putin for survival. That was the moment the shadow began to grow darker. Russian troops started moving freely across Belarusian territory. Military bases expanded. Joint exercises became permanent deployments. The line between Belarusian and Russian forces blurred. And before anyone could fully grasp it, Belarus had become something close to a forward operating base for Russia's ambitions in Eastern Europe. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, much of the northern offensive came directly from Belarusian soil. Missiles were fired from there, Russian tanks rolled through Belarusian forests into Ukraine, and the world saw what it meant for Belarus to be under Moscow's influence. Lukashenko denied involvement, of course, claiming Belarus was just a neutral bystander. But neutrality doesn't look like lending your territory for an invasion. And yet, the story doesn't stop there. What's truly fascinating is how Ukraine has responded, not with loud declarations or open threats, but with quiet, strategic precision. Kyiv understands that destabilizing Belarus could open a new front or provoke Moscow further. So instead, Ukraine has been working silently, targeting the weak points inside the Belarusian system, not with tanks, but with information, influence, and quiet alliances. There are whispers that Ukrainian intelligence has been actively supporting anti-Lukashenko partisans inside Belarus. Small sabotage acts, explosions on railways, disruptions in communication lines have been reported multiple times. None of them officially claimed, none confirmed, but the message is clear. Belarus might be under Russian control, but not everyone inside is obeying Moscow's orders anymore. Meanwhile, Lukashenko himself is caught in a trap of his own making. He depends on Putin for money, for energy, and most of all, for protection. But he also knows that too much Russian presence could eventually mean losing his own power. So he plays a dangerous double game, pretending loyalty to Moscow, while quietly trying to preserve a sliver of independence. Yet that sliver is shrinking. Recently, reports have surfaced that Russian security agencies are embedding deeper into Belarusian institutions, from intelligence to media. Russian advisors are said to be stationed permanently inside the Belarusian Ministry of Defense, and even in state television. This isn't cooperation, it's infiltration, and for Lukashenko, every new agreement with Russia feels more like another link in a chain he can't break. But let's take a step back. Why is Belarus so important to Russia in the first place? Geography. Belarus sits right between Russia and NATO territory, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia. For Moscow, it's a strategic shield. Control Belarus, and you have direct access to Europe's eastern flank. Lose it, and Russia's western defense line collapses. That's why Putin can't afford to let Belarus drift away. It's not just about Lukashenko, it's about maintaining a buffer zone that keeps NATO at arm's length. And that's where Ukraine's quiet moves come into play again. Instead of trying to confront Belarus head on, Kyiv is focusing on undermining Russia's influence from within. Ukrainian officials have been building quiet connections with the Belarusian opposition, people like Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, who operates from exile in Lithuania but continues to inspire resistance inside Belarus. Ukrainian media and activists have also been giving platforms to Belarusian soldiers who joined the fight against Russia. You've probably heard of the Kastus Kilinowski Battalion, a group of Belarusian volunteers fighting alongside Ukrainians on the front lines. Their message is simple. They're not just fighting for Ukraine's freedom, but for Belarus's independence from Russian control. And that message echoes loudly across Belarus's borders. In the shadows, the balance is shifting. Belarusian society, long silenced by fear, is showing signs of quiet rebellion. More Belarusians are refusing to serve in state security forces. Underground media outlets are spreading uncensored information about the war. And every time Russia loses ground in Ukraine, the illusion of Putin's invincibility fades even in Minsk. Still, the danger remains enormous. Russia has stationed tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus, a move that Lukashenko once claimed would never happen. Now, they are there, and he insists they are under joint control. But everyone knows what that means. The Kremlin holds the key. This decision wasn't about defending Belarus. It was about sending a message to the West that any escalation could have catastrophic consequences. Meanwhile, the Belarusian military finds itself in an uneasy position. On paper, it's loyal to Lukashenko. But in reality, morale is low, and the idea of fighting Ukraine, a neighboring country that most Belarusians see as a friend, is deeply unpopular. That's why, despite constant pressure from Moscow, Belarus has not officially joined the war. Lukashenko knows that forcing his soldiers to fight in Ukraine could ignite a revolt at home. That revolt might already be simmering. Small protest movements have started to reappear, even under tight surveillance. Digital resistance groups, like the cyber partisans, continue to hack government systems and leak sensitive data. These groups claim to have access to transportation networks, police databases, even military logistics. Their operations are low profile, but highly effective, and many of them have quiet ties to Ukrainian intelligence. For Ukraine, this quiet resistance inside Belarus is priceless. It stretches Russian resources, forces Moscow to keep troops stationed north of Kyiv, and prevents a full-scale second invasion from the Belarusian border. It's like a chess game where every pawn matters and Ukraine is playing it with patience and precision. But what about the West? How is Europe reacting to this silent struggle? The truth is, not loudly enough. Western nations have imposed sanctions on Belarus for its role in aiding Russia. But those sanctions haven't changed much. Lukashenko continues to survive, backed by Russian oil and money. What he fears isn't economic pressure, it's losing control. And that's exactly what Ukraine and the internal Belarusian resistance are quietly chipping away at. There's also an emotional side to this story that often gets overlooked. Many Belarusians feel trapped between two wars, one inside their country, between dictatorship and freedom, and another next door, where their neighbors are fighting for survival. Families are divided. Some Belarusians secretly send aid to Ukraine, while others fear even talking about it. The atmosphere inside Belarus is thick with silence, the kind that only exists in countries where everyone knows the walls have ears. Meanwhile, Lukashenko tries to project strength. He stages military parades, gives fiery speeches about Western conspiracies, and insists that Belarus stands firm with Russia. But behind closed doors, he's increasingly nervous. There are reports that he's reshuffling his inner circle, fearing betrayal. Even among his loyalists, there's growing fatigue. Many realize that aligning completely with Russia might mean losing everything if Putin's regime starts to fall apart. And that's the other piece of the puzzle. What happens if Russia weakens further? The war in Ukraine has drained Moscow's resources, exposed its military flaws, and eroded its global reputation. If Russia falters, Belarus could become the next battleground, not of tanks, but of influence. The opposition in exile is waiting. Ukraine is watching, and the people inside Belarus are quietly hoping for a moment to act. Ukraine, for its part, continues to move quietly, avoiding provocation but staying ready. Every missile strike launched from Belarusian territory is a reminder of the threat. Every report of Russian troops stationed near the border keeps Ukraine on high alert. But Kyiv's leaders know that patience is a weapon too. They don't need to shout. They just need to wait for the cracks to widen, because once they do, Belarus could become Putin's biggest loss yet. This is a shadow war, fought not with headlines but with whispers, sabotage, alliances, and hope. The world might not see it happening, but the consequences are already shaping the region. Russia wants total control, but control built on fear never lasts forever. The more Moscow tightens its grip, the more resistance begins to rise quietly, steadily, waiting for its moment. In this story, Ukraine is not just defending its own borders. It's defending the possibility that Belarus can be free again someday. It's showing that power doesn't always come from loud declarations. Sometimes it comes from the quiet strength of those who refuse to surrender. And somewhere inside Belarus, behind the silence and the fear, that strength is growing. People are watching what's happening in Ukraine, and they're realizing something powerful, that even the largest empire can stumble, that even dictators can fall, and that freedom, once it finds its voice, can echo through every shadow. Russia's shadow over Belarus might seem unbreakable now, but shadows only exist when there's light, and the light is moving closer. So as Ukraine moves quietly and Russia tightens its grip, the question that remains is not whether Belarus will change, but when. Because every regime built on force eventually faces the reckoning of its own people. And when that moment comes, it won't be quiet anymore. It'll be the sound of a nation waking up. Thank you for watching till the end. If you found this analysis meaningful, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's unfolding power stories. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and remember, even in the darkest times, truth always finds a way to shine.